Right, guys, we're back on the Edge podcast. It's episode number 21, brought to you by Aftermarket Arbitrage. So today we've got Josh with us. He's the owner of Gold Standard Growth, and he's an e-commerce growth specialist. So thank you for coming on, mate.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
It's been long overdue. Your first message to us on Instagram was ages ago, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a couple months ago, seeing what you guys have been doing.
Yeah.
And thank you for having me here as well.
No
this
problem.
place is super, super cool. And I love what you guys are doing. So interested to talk about loads of stuff today, SMMA, e-commerce. We can get into anything.
Yes. Josh has got a really, really interesting story, really successful guy. There's going to be tons and tons of I reckon nuggets of knowledge in here that anyone who's sort of trying to grow a brand or do anything online, there's going to be a lot of value in this podcast for you. So please make sure to watch through all of it and subscribe. We've got more guests coming up. We've got a good roster ahead of us. Make sure you don't miss out on those. So we'll start from the very beginning, how we normally do it, as everyone knows. Want to know where you're from? How did you get into it? What you do now? How was school? Did you go to university? Was you always against that sort of the traditional route of being funneled into a 9-to-5 job? Let's hear it all.
Yeah, definitely not at first. My school experience was an interesting one. I was one of those kids that had potential, but wanted to do the bare minimum.
Yep.
I was always more interested in having fun with my friends and getting up to all sorts.
Yeah.
Which some of it was,
not allowed on camera.
Some of it you definitely shouldn't have. But when it came to school, it was always the same every single year at those parents' evenings where they bring you along, where they say your kid has massive potential, but he can't concentrate for more than 10-15 minutes. So for me, I always thought that school was just something to get through, and the worst thing they told me in school was that I just needed a C.
Yeah.
So I pretty much blasted everything with a C. Most of my predictions were like B's and A's, but the moment I knew that was it, I just got C's in everything. So school was interesting for me. Good times, but it was just good times. It wasn't necessarily too special for me in any regards to education. But then went on to college. I had picked up music at the age of about 14.
Yeah.
So I was playing a lot of guitar, started playing drums as well, and I wanted to get into kind of music production, but didn't know where to go.
Yeah.
So fortunately, there was a music college that was opening up near me that I think it had opened up like a year or two ago, and they were bringing people in for college, and it was really good. So I did music performance for 2 years. Then I wanted to learn a lot of production stuff. I got into a lot of techno, hip hop, boom bap kind of stuff, trap. Was really interested in producing this kind of music, and I already had the musical intelligence to know what works with melodies, but I didn't know how to produce music. I was just good at playing instruments. So I then did that for a year, and at the same time I started to find the first inkling of what I'm doing now, which is around about, what age would have been, about 18, I started a Facebook page. Now this was back when Facebook pages were like super crazy organic, not like really they are now. And I had a Facebook page that was essentially just like a meme page, which I know a lot of people that have got into any online space, a lot of them started as young kids with like meme pages and stuff. So I had a meme page that was around like production memes. So it would just be making fun at kind of newbie producers. Started doing that, wasn't making like any money off it, but the aim wasn't to. And that was kind of why it was cool, because we were all so young. It was myself and a couple of friends that we just wanted to grow a page, and we could see maybe some potential. And then after about 6 months of doing that, we amassed quite a good following on Facebook. The page is actually still up. It's called Synth The Source. It's all one word. I can't actually remember how we spelled it. It was that long ago. But essentially what we did is we created a sample pack. And it wasn't to make money at all. It was to go ahead and essentially just do something really cool. We all thought it would be a cool idea. And We had no clue how it was going to do, but we did have this like big following. And
How many followers did you get to?
it was like 1,400 on the Facebook page, and we had a Facebook group as well. I actually can't remember how many people were in the group, but it was for something that had just started off. It was really cool, and the follower to like engagement ratio was crazy. So we basically went and released this sample pack, and within 48 hours we were number one on like the free sample pack charts worldwide. And the competitor that was below us in the charts, they went on to build like a massive business selling sample packs, but we were also...
What do you mean by sample packs, sorry?
So, yeah, for anybody that is listening that has no clue about kind of the music production world. So, for example, if you wanted to produce trap music, you would get a sample pack that has 50 different trap snares in. So you would have different snare sounds that you could put onto a drum rack or a drum board and hit them, and you could program them to obviously make a drum beat. So when you're listening to Tory Lanez or Kanye, most of the time they're using samples from a sample pack, which they've obviously programmed to make a drum beat. So we had a bunch of sounds. They were actually natural sounds, so they were like water and stuff like that. People skateboarding, just sounds that people could use like at the beginning of their tracks. And that was like the first thing I ever did online that was like super cool. I was in university for a year. I went
studying
music production, and it started to kind of fall out of love with it. Always like really enjoyed the music side, but when it came to what I wanted to do further on, I was actually getting quite interested in what I was doing with this Facebook page. And it was from there that I guess my interest grew. I was fortunate enough as well at the time to get a full-time job where I went into radio advertising. So the radio advertising job, whilst having this Facebook page as well, there was some sort of correlation of what would eventually happen, I guess, in my life. But so I worked in radio advertising for about 1.5 years. And then I got fired through a conflict of interest because being naturally entrepreneurial, I was going out after work and I was going to restaurants and I was doing social media management for them.
Got it.
I then stupidly put it on Facebook and discrepancies happened because they were offering social media management for their customers. I wasn't actually involved in it at all. I was actually mixing, mastering and scheduling these adverts that these annoying adverts that you hear on radio, and I was ignorant. I didn't do it thinking, I really want to screw over what they're doing. I was just too young to realize that actually that could get me fired if I'm doing that outside. So I got fired from that job, and I quit university after 1 year. So then I just worked some odd jobs. Well, not necessarily odd jobs, but just trying different things. And I see this in so many young people that are like, I really don't know where to go, or like I really want to try a lot of different things, but they're not actually doing anything. Like they're just, it's like option paralysis, right? So I went and worked with children with autism, which was one of the best experiences, best jobs I've ever had. Maybe not financially, but it was like really good.
Was it full time?
No, it was just part-time, but it was one of those jobs where you could kind of like make up the hours. Do you know what I mean? Like they would always have shifts. But I guess I was fortunate enough not to really need like a full-time wage at like 20. And then I went ahead and worked at a warehouse. And that was the job that made me decide I couldn't do it anymore.
It was the exact same for me, warehouse job.
It's... I think they're just so mundane that they just, But what happened is I went and worked in the warehouse. I got all the forklift training and whatever. And throughout this whole time, so from getting fired from the advertising job to working with children with autism to then the warehouse, through this whole period, I'd really been studying a lot of stuff online. So I'd been looking into Facebook ads. I didn't have masses of money to spend on Facebook ads. I didn't have anything that I could really work with too much. So I essentially just studied, bought a lot of books, bought all the like, kind of what you call them, entrepreneurial books, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Yeah, read that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best book
All that
ever.
sort of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, besides the Bible, best book ever. But then you've got what was it as well? Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah,
all of those
stuff.
classics I was
Yeah.
reading as a young kid, and then it was when I started working in the warehouse, I had enough finance coming in and no liabilities at all. I was driving a Mark II Polo, which was like from the 90s. It was like my little baby, and I didn't have rent to pay. I think I was paying maybe £100 a month to live with my parents.
Yeah.
And it was just my first full-time job, so I had a lot of spare income. So that as soon as I had spare income coming in, I was spending £500 to £700 a month on either self-education or going ahead and just spending on Facebook ads, most of the time burning the money. And this was when drop shipping and stuff was really picking up. Like this is before, I know like it's been essentially recycled like 1 million times now, drop shipping, but this is when it was really coming up through Facebook ads. So the first thing that I did, I guess, that had some leverage for me to see a different life was actually Amazon FBA.
Very interesting, as that's what we do.
And this will be a lesson for everybody. Don't do what I did, because I basically bought a load of like Beyblades. And I was selling them, but I didn't have a license to sell them.
Okay.
So I bought a load of Beyblades. I spent, I can't remember how much, maybe £700, £500 on a course. And this was just the mindset that I had. I was like, I have all this money coming in, but also I had friends that were at university that I knew that were actually maybe going to do something in a few years. But I had nothing. So I better teach myself, right? Turns out university wasn't too great for some of them anyway. Whatever. But at the time I was very much like, if I don't sort something out now, whilst I have this cash coming in to do something later on in life, I'm going to be on this forklift forever. So I better get to it. So what happened with Amazon is I bought a load of stock in and I sold for the first time out of these Beyblades, right? And I ordered a load more in with the money that I've made. Unfortunately, because I didn't have the license to sell them, they shut down everything. So then I had a load of product coming over to the States, and essentially I had to destroy it all. Now, I didn't necessarily make any money there at all in the end, but it completely changed my life. Because it was the first time that I'd gone, wow, there's some money pending in an account for me. And I saw it actually come into my account. And I thought, okay, that didn't work. I didn't like some of the stuff to do with FBA. And what essentially I realized is that I needed my own thing. So I was like, okay, that's cool. That was completely life-changing. But now I want to do my own thing. And this is, especially when drop shipping was taking off, was like, you could very easily, because Facebook ads were so cheap, you could run something that wasn't too great and still make money.
I know a lot of people that made like a ton of money from just selling like jeans, like drop shipping jeans, and made like ridiculous amounts from doing it.
And my first one into that space, which is, by the way, if you are getting into anything like drop shipping, it is an incredible tool to learn marketing and to learn e-com. You can't do it forever. Anybody that says that, we can have
debate.
We can debate. Maybe have a fight or something. But when it comes to drop shipping, I had a product which was essentially a blanket that you could put on your legs, but it made your legs look like you were a mermaid. So that was my first product that I ran. We ran it up to 8.3k, and then my first ad account got deleted because it was taking too long with shipping. But by doing all of this, you're learning so much. And what happened from there was I'd made my first bit of income that showed me like a new kind of way of living, I guess. And from that moment on, like, I was completely hooked on all of it. So obviously drop shipping, when you're doing it from China is not a great idea. I had a few other stores that I worked with in regards to myself. And then what actually happened, which led me to quitting my job, was I went and I basically bashed on my cousin's husband's door. And now he owns a multi-million-pound sewing company here in the UK.
Yep.
And he was the only person I knew, he was the only person I knew locally that had any inkling into this online world of ecom. He'd been doing it for absolutely years. So I just went, annoyed him essentially. If I can give anyone some advice, if you know somebody that's older than you and they're doing what you want to do, just annoy them. And just annoy them until you take all the information out of them, and hopefully eventually you can pay it back to them. But he was really good. He was my first mentor and he really helped me out. Super nice guy. And he's obviously a family member as well, but he did a lot of things for me that he really didn't have to do. And that meant a lot to me. And he was struggling with Facebook ads, but because I had amassed this skill that I learned through drop shipping, which is what I always say when people ask me about drop shipping, go ahead and actually take in everything you need from drop shipping to get it working, but you can't do it forever. You need to start your own brand with in-house products or whatever. But I essentially said to him, look, I'll give you a hand with some Facebook ads. And he started paying me every single month to do that because he was selling sewing machines, fabric, and accidentally I fell into SMMA. And this is before there was SMMA courses. This is before it was, if you wanted to get into this space, you had two choices. You had Tai Lopez, which was still the original, like the guy. He's a funny guy. Or you just had to figure it out yourself. This was before probably even Sam Ovens came onto the consulting space. But yeah, it was really just Tai Lopez. So, of course, being young and not having too much money, especially when I quit my job, I went ahead and like pirated Tai Lopez's course, which a lot of people won't admit to, but there's a lot of people that did that. And learning from him, and eventually I went on to buy Sam Ovens' course. I quit and really started making a go of things just before I turned 22. But it was tough to start because you're like thrown into this world where you don't necessarily, you may have a skill, but you don't really know how to sell that skill. So for me, I was like real good with Facebook ads and marketing. I knew it down to a T. I didn't know how to market myself at all. And we'll talk about some of the SMMA stuff at some point, but it was, for the first year or two, it was tough. It was really tough. So then obviously been running the business for a couple of years, started working with some good brands, scaled a fishing brand to plus $1 million a year.
And what did they start at when you first started working with them? What was they at?
They were doing around 10,000, 12,000 a month.
So just over 120k a year, let's say.
Yeah.
Well, 120k a year, and you scaled it to $1 million.
Yeah, they were doing around 90,000, pushing a bit more come Q4. But that was my first wow. Like you can take something from that all the way up to that, and they had a recurring membership as well. And that was scaled like crazy on the back end, not necessarily through ads, but on the back end. And that was my first wow, this can really become $1 million stuff, £1 million stuff really quickly if you know what you're doing. And I think I learned a lot through working with numerous brands, and one of the things that I've learned the most is definitely to learn from other people's mistakes. And I think you can take that in any walk of life. For sure. But I've now seen through the last 5-6 years of being in this space so many mistakes at a 10k a month level, 5k a month level, at a 50k a month level, 100k a month level, plus $1 million a month level. There is so many things that I can see before they happen now. So that's why I really just enjoy what I'm doing now, which is just working with brands, growing them. which is why I enjoy what I'm doing now, working with brands and just growing them.
Yep.
Because I can see stuff before it happens, and it becomes less of a problem.
You're sort of helping people take them stepping stones between 10k to 20k to 50k to 100k.
Yeah.
You're that hand-holding process.
Yeah, and within that as well, there's so many micro issues that happen that if aren't fixed, and they always say you wouldn't build a house on the sand, don't do the same with your business. That's why at a lower level, it's really good to fix things, especially on the logistics side, to then be able to go ahead and scale. Because you take something that's doing 10k a month in a garage or a small warehouse space, and I go in and blow it up with ads, like they are going to have some serious problems. And they might be great problems to have, but they're still problems. So I have then been working, doing this up to the age of about 24, 25, and then my beautiful girlfriend got a job in Bournemouth. So we have moved up there. We've been there for the last year and 3-4 months now, nearly a year and a half. So I like Bournemouth, but originally from Cornwall. Back in the depths of England. It's definitely my home. I miss it dearly. I miss family, but I think it's a tough place for young people. A really tough place for young people.
Why? In terms of what?
Just opportunities. That's why I had to go online. Like there was no other way of me making much of myself down there, because I could have worked in, I guess, corporate or whatever, but it just wasn't for me. I really struggled in corporate because there was a time in particular that you'll laugh at this, but when I started at the radio advertising agency, I thought so much of it and thought it was such a massive thing. I didn't realize that everyone would just be wearing like shirts, and I turned up in a suit. I turned up in a proper suit, and I walked in, and my manager looked at me. He was like, "Nice to meet you. You're Josh, right?" I was like, "Yeah." He was like, "I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to say it. Why are you wearing a suit?" I was like, "Well, I thought, I just
it was corporate
dress my best." But I remember it very, very well. I turned up in this stupid suit that was too big for me, and after 4 days, I remember specifically looking around at everybody. And I thought, she's been here for 10 years. He's been here for 3 years. He's been here for a year. Old guy at the back's been there for 15 years. And I thought, I've been here for 4 days and I want to kill myself. Like, literally. I just couldn't do it. So it was also, and this is one of the things that I've definitely learned about myself, and I think people should be aware of as you get older, because you think you're 21 and then 1 minute you are 26. If you realize that something isn't for you and you have time, you need to do something about it now. Don't push it away. Don't play your video games to distract yourself. You really need to actually look at what opportunity you've got. And for me, it was like, okay, I don't want to do this, but I guess I can learn something that's going to... And then I was like, but I have time. And when I was in the warehouse as well, and that was, £1,200, £1,300 a month coming through to me with like no liabilities besides fuel and a tiny, tiny bit of rent. I was like, I can burn all of this money. And guess what? I get paid again next month. But I can do this for the next 3 years. So I realized that, and then I went and just spent so much on learning. I think if I didn't do that and pushed it all to the back and maybe got a different job and thought that job would be okay for me, and I think I would have ended up in a situation where I just really wasn't happy, because I think I was more happy working in a warehouse because it was a tiny bit more freedom. But when it came to being in corporate and answering to people, and it was like being in school again for me. I just couldn't concentrate. I would always say something that was a bit off the wall, and people would say, hey, you can't speak like that. So for me, doing what I'm doing now, I always say it's like the best thing that I could be doing because I love it. And interestingly enough, I had a conversation with a friend, was this 3 or 4 months ago, and he said, Josh, like, why don't you play video games anymore?
Yeah.
And I haven't properly played a game for years now, like years. And I think he was saying that, like, you know, I'm playing games the tiniest bit too much. How do I rein that back in? So how do I put that back in? And I said to him, like, after really thinking about it, because I was like, I don't actually know. Like, I don't actually know. I really tried to, like, I guess, self-analyze myself. And I realized that everything I do every single day, waking up, speaking with clients, going ahead and getting results for the clients, fixing things on websites, dealing with problems, it's literally like a video game.
Yeah.
So that is my game.
Yeah.
Like, what I'm doing every single day is my video game.
Yeah.
So I don't need to, and I don't receive the dopamine from playing games. For example, if I'm leveling up in an actual game, which I've done recently, I was playing RuneScape a few days ago just because I wanted to play it again for the nostalgia.
I was addicted to RuneScape as a kid.
Yeah,
like,
same.
Heavily addicted to RuneScape.
And my friends started playing it again, so I thought, let's play. I'm cutting this tree. I'm thinking, this is so boring. Even though I'm like leveling up, but I'm like, this is so boring. I'm not getting any dopamine from this. Like, I want to go drive my car. I want to, like, speak with a client. I want to push for bigger results. You can then, through that, get paid more, and then that affects your real life. Like, that's the best video game ever. It's probably the closest thing you can get to actual, like, GTA.
Literally.
So, like, that was a really interesting question, and I think a lot of young guys struggle with this. I don't think it's spoke about enough. Video games are seriously addicting if your life sucks.
And I remember, so, like, I was in, like, Call of Duty 5, Modern Warfare, all of that high school. And since, like, starting, like, my business and stuff, I've had way over 100 PS5s come through my door to sell on. Not one of them has stayed. Not one. I haven't touched anything since high school. And it's the exact same. It's why be productive on a game when you could be productive in real life. And like you said, it becomes your game because you take action on something, you get actual quantifiable results that leads to some sort of improvement. It's exactly the same concept.
Yeah, and I don't think most people besides I don't think most people besides entrepreneurs actually understand that.
Yeah.
Where the results are actually in real time in real life.
Yep.
So, like, for example, you start crafting something in World of Warcraft or RuneScape, that always will stay in the game. If you start working on something within your business, that's actually going to affect your real life, which affects your girlfriend, it affects your family, it affects you.
Future.
Yeah, your future. You can start thinking about other things. And that's how I see things. It's like the best video game ever. There's a quote, I can't remember who it's by, but it's, if a man wakes up in the morning, goes to bed in the evening, and does exactly what he wants in the times in between, then he's successful regardless of finance. And that, I live by that. Like, if I can wake up every single day and just do what I want, it's not going to be fun all the time. There's going to be stressful times. But if I'm actually genuinely doing what I want, that's it for me. And I really feel like when I realized when I was younger that I needed to do something on my own, and I took action, that's the best thing I've ever done, because
Same with me.
Yeah, I'm not the sort of person to shy away from that. And I think if you don't shy away from that, it's eventually going to be something that you'll either regret or you'll try and do in a situation in your life that's a bit harder to do in circumstances where you've got 3 children.
And that's on that point where you said about being able to wake up and sort of do what you want, and that is successful and not necessarily financially successful. But that's something that I think a lot of people miss the mark with. A lot of people just assume that finance is equal success. I know people that are in partners at big 4 firms, they're earning 700k a year, but the family, they never see the family. They work almost 7 days a week. They might have a nice big house, but they can't do anything with it. They can't do anything with the kids. They're working all the time. Their wife hates them. They don't have a real relationship with the kids. So what's the money worth? And when you can't actually do anything with that money, like there's no, like, you're not going out and doing stuff with your kids. You're not going on holidays. You're too busy and caught up in that life of work. what is the point of working for that money if you're not going to be able to enjoy it?
Yeah, you don't take any of it with you.
No, exactly.
So,
Exactly.
So,
And
yeah.
I think that's where it's a massive misconception of where people always tie success to finances. But for me, it massively is related to freedom and the ability to live on your own terms and not be controlled in a sense.
Yeah, and I always say that, like, numbers never end. So if numbers never end, then, you know, where do you go from there? Well, numbers never end, but freedom does start.
Yeah.
So just try and look to start there.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can make some, you know, good income. You can have massive impact on businesses, whatever. Get paid, but it's not the end.
Yeah.
Like, because there is no end
Yeah.
to the numbers. So stop thinking that. I think once you get like a decent amount of money in your pocket, you stop thinking about bringing in cash now anyway. And, you know, you stop that mindset of like, oh, I need to make, you know, I know everybody. It's
because I think once you've done something, you've got to a certain level. You're not living on that paycheck to paycheck. It's not that necessity for that hourly rate that you're depending on to live. If you've been able to set 100%. Something up, get a bit of money behind you, get a little bit of a safety net in place, you don't mind if you have a bad day or a bad week. It could even be a bad month, because you know that on the other side of it, if you keep persevering, you're going to come out better. And if you've got that money as a safety net, like that, and that, this is one of the big things that we push in terms of young people starting a side hustle, because they can quite easily build up enough capital at a very young age to have that safety net. They can do it to invest in whatever business they want. If they want to start their own company, they've already got that starting capital. You don't have to love Amazon FBA, drop shipping, reselling, but it makes you money. Like, and it's got back to that thing of the sense that you can't, like, I read a quote recently and it's like, leave your passions to the weekend. Your passions, like, and you should always be doing what you're passionate about. And like, I guess in a lot of businesses, like, for example, you might be seriously passionate about what you do, but not every, and it's the same with me, but not everyone's going to be fortunate enough. Like, if their passion is, I don't know, like crystals, it's going to be quite hard to make a lot of money in that. Yeah. But so, like, in that sense, like, it depends what your passion lies in. But so if someone's really passionate about something and it's not going to be able, they're not going to be able to monetize it, you need to focus on your skills, and then you leave your passion to the weekend. But if you've got something that, like with us, with like reselling, Amazon FBA, dropshipping, whatever side hustle you want to do, SMMA, you make the money now. We're focused on making money, and then you can enjoy your passions more in the future. You're going to have a more fruitful life. And it's sort of get uncomfortable early on. It's like with anything, like, yes, you are going to have to invest your time. You're going to have to do something that probably all of your friends aren't doing. But 5-10 years down the line, who's coming out on top? It's undoubtedly going to be you. We get people like all the time messaging saying, I'm 16. Like, I had someone on TikTok live the other day say, I'm like 16, I've made $5,000 from reselling. What do I do now? And like, but he's like, but my friends, he's like, the thing is none of my friends are interested. They're all like, just want to go out, just do nothing. And I said, like, the main piece of advice I'd give to that person in that situation is sort of literally focus on yourself, stay in your own lane, because by the time you get to 20, if you've done that at 16, like you said, time's on your side. By that point, you could have at least 20, 30K in the bank from small side hustles. Yeah. If you start now and you've got a head on yourself like that, you're going to be miles ahead of the people that are just focused on a warehouse job.
Yeah, and I think one thing as well is that it does take sacrifice.
Yeah.
And especially somebody that's been through it for a few years, and yourself as well, you'll know this. It's lonely, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Super lonely. That's why everybody in the entrepreneurial space, they all like to link up.
Yeah.
Like, because it's really hard to have these conversations with people at your local pub because they just don't understand.
Yeah.
So that's fine. But in the online space, it doesn't help with the YouTube guru space as well, but it's all made out to be so easy.
Yeah.
But the actual, I guess, the core things that you can do, if we take SMMA, for example, sign a client, deliver results, get paid.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's like a million things between 1 and 2, and then there's another million things between 2 and 3. So it's not as simple as a lot of people make out. There's micro problems that happen between these things. There's loads of stuff you need to, set up. If you're talking about SMMA, if you're talking about ecom as well, it's not necessarily super easy. It's actually quite hard. I think reselling is one of the best things that you can do to get started.
Yep.
Reselling and drop shipping are two of the best things you can do to learn why a product sells and how it's taken by the market. And once you start doing that numerous times, you're going to start to see patterns, right? Yeah. So maybe that can help you a couple of years down the line. But it does take sacrifice. And I don't think people speak about that enough when it comes to a podcast, like this or any entrepreneurial podcast. It's super lonely.
Yeah. I agree. And that's one of the most difficult times for me was before I quit my full-time job. So working, so I was studying to do my chartered accountancy, working full-time in M&A, and then building aftermarket at the same time. My routine would be literally wake up at 6, revise till 9, start work at 9, finish at like 6, revise from like 6 till like 8, and then work on aftermarket from like 8 till 12. It was like a vicious cycle of being locked in a bedroom, and that's sacrifice. And it got to a point when then I stayed in that full-time job for a year in that situation, but I didn't stop. And it wasn't like I give up or I was like, something's got to go, aftermarket's got to go so I can have some free time. No, it was double down. And then it became to the point when literally the revenue from aftermarket was matched my monthly salary. And it's like I persevered through that year. And then the revenue from aftermarket each day matched my monthly salary at my job. And at that point, I was like, time to go. And then think of all that time that's just freed up. If I only have to work, it's changed now, obviously, because we do the podcast, we do a lot more marketing content. When I started aftermarket, didn't have to do anything. It was just like screenshots on Instagram stories. Yeah. The landscape has completely changed for acquiring customers for us. But so that now takes more time. But think of it, I don't have to study for an accountancy anymore. Don't have to work a 9 to 5. And in my 9 to 5, it was just like moving a logo on a presentation or reading a bit of a spreadsheet. It was like totally like mind-numbing stuff, even though it was classed as a glamorous job out of university. It was like it was just not stimulating for me. And now I'm able to work full time on my business, my baby, and actually see that when I'm doing something, like if I make a decision today, I'll see the impact tomorrow or in a week or in a month or in a year. But if I move that logo, I don't know what it's doing. It's going to the guy above me, and then I don't know what he's doing with it. Like, it's sort of like with what we do, we can actually see when you're like the owner, and probably in any field, when you're in that position where you can make those quick decisions for yourself and you're in charge, you get more and more motivated every day because you've got the ability to see what your decisions can do. And you also learn a lot along that, but you're going to make the wrong decision a lot. We're young, where we're not going to be naive to the fact that we're going to make mistakes in business. But that's probably the best thing about it. Think of how much you learn across that journey. Yeah,
and it's like I was laughing as you're saying that because I know exactly what that feels like when you're doing stuff and then it goes to somebody else and then it goes to somebody. It's like none of it feels real.
Yeah.
Like where is the thing that I get at the end?
Yeah.
Like, but with what we do, it's very real. You see it in real time. And it's very quick.
What just come to my mind, and this is the first time I've ever thought about this. The only actionable result we would get from moving that logo is the paycheck. We don't really see what it does. When you're at the bottom, you're not the one delivering it to the client and seeing the impact. But to get to the top, you're going to work for 20 years at that firm. Now with us, everything we do has we see the positive impact on others. It's not necessarily we're focused on the money coming in the bank. It's the impact that we can deliver, and then that lands money in the bank. So we see the positive impact. You see it with the people you work with. We see it with the people we work with, now see it firsthand. And that is the most motivating factor about everything. I love seeing, for example, we put on the stories this morning, someone's just bought a car from the Ramsden profits.
Amazing.
That is you think the butterfly effect, ripple effect, whatever you want to call it, you've been able to take that financial pressure off him. He's been able to buy a car, which is obviously a painful decision for most people financially, having to fork out for a brand new car. We've supported that through a side hustle. Now, that car also has a positive impact on his wife, his kids. It can mean that they can go to places. It opens up so many doorways that I think people, when they look at it at face value, don't think about. No. And it's even you helping your clients, let's say you helped scale that business to 1 million. Then how many people through a network did that positively support? And then, because every person that was in the organization will have felt a benefit from it, but then every one of their family members will have been impacted positively as well. Like the actual depths to how far it can go, and like the spider web of how far you can impact someone just from doing your day-to-day business. When you actually deep it like that, like I don't think there's a better feeling.
Yeah, and I think as well on the flip side, as well, is when you work in corporate, for example, let's say you spend some money on ads, because I think we've got to be responsible enough to take account for the positive and the negative.
For sure.
Because I think it's very, easy to talk about the positive, but when you spend money for a company on ads, a corporate company, and it doesn't work out, there's some bozos in the marketing department, whatever, they spent 500 quid, okay, it didn't work out. Now you spent your 500 quid because it's your company. I think that the positives for doing what we do is like up here. The negatives are actually pretty strong as well.
Yeah, for sure. On both ends of the spectrum, they're going to be exaggerated because it's personal to you. It's like when we talked about earlier, we were talking about agencies before we started the pod, and like we were paying an agency at one point like 5 or 6K a month, and we got zero return on investment, and we were in a contract with them. We couldn't get out of it. I think we ended up doing like maybe 6 months with them before we could leave. We got out as soon as we could. And that relationship ended horribly. But again, massive lesson learned. But you're right, when it's $5,000 going out of your bank every single month, and it's like, I could have this money for myself, and just like, it would be better just sat in the bank, like rather than why would I give it to these guys when they're doing nothing with it?
Yeah,
they're delivering me no quantifiable result. So then, yes, you do get the negative side of it, but the negative comes the positive comes the negative, and it's, as we said, it's just one fucking long journey of learning every day.
Yeah, and as well, I think when it comes to starting your own business and being self-aware enough to know if you can do something like this, you can't be highly emotional, in my opinion. No. Because it's such a roller coaster. You can go to bed one night being like, I just closed a massive deal, or my client's got a massive result. The people I work with are so happy. Somebody's just called me saying thank you. Or you can have the complete flip side of that, and it's a roller coaster, and you go to bed feeling awful. You find it hard to switch off because you got stuff on your mind. You're trying to think of how you can fix stuff, but realistically it's 2 a.m, you should be asleep. And I think if you're highly emotional or just can't take the roller coaster, you should be responsible enough to understand that that's not, it may not work for you. And that's why people that work within businesses or for businesses, I think sometimes it's the right choice. Because as well, I think if you're entrepreneurial, you have this kind of alien mindset, which definitely when I was younger, I felt it was alien. Like I thought especially as I said, when I was sat in that room after 4 days being like, I can't do this. Well, how has somebody from accounting done this for 12 years? They must have a different mind.
The exact same with me. Because my experience was in a chemical factory, filling up bottles with chemical, putting a sticker on, putting a lid on. There you go. Over
As
and
you're
over
saying
and
that,
over.
I'm like,
no. And I was working for £5 an hour, £200 a week, 800 quid a month. That was a summer job. But I knew by the end of that summer, I wanted the money. I was always driven by money. I was like, I will do it. But when I got to the end of the summer, because I was 16 at that point, there wasn't really much else I could be doing. And not in like, I mean, in terms of traditional job means, with the likes of, I wasn't exposed to reselling sneakers. I didn't know anything about it. It was, felt like when I ventured into that world, I was like mind blown. And then look what it led to. The sort of, but being in that point, and when I got to the end of that 6 weeks, I was like, oh my God. And it was the same thing where it's like, them people are there. And I know for a fact that them people are still there today. And I'm like, how on earth? Like, because for me, it's like, look at the journey in terms of like what I've done in business, or what we've been able to build with me and my team. within that time, and they're still screwing the lids.
Yeah, super
It's just,
scary.
it's honestly like, that's to me is like a really scary thought, because it's something that I think a lot of people are blinded, well, not blinded, but maybe ignorant to the fact that we only get one go here. So why not do everything you fucking can to make sure you've got the best life possible? And you leave the earth knowing that the earth is better off for you being here. You've had a positive impact on people.
Yeah.
You've helped people. And that is something that I think too many people like just, we was talking about it last night actually, about like sort of mindset, and with people that are just happy living for the weekend, and they just,
I can't.
yeah.
Yeah, I can't. We were talking about this earlier. I rarely drink now.
Yeah.
I like to drink on occasion, but when it's cause for celebration, I just can't see the sacrifice being worth it at this point for me. And I think maybe it's because I'm getting older. I'm 26 now. But if I have like 3 or 4 beers, I used to be able to, go for a night out and then get in at like 3 a.m, go to college the next day. Like, if I have like 4 beers now on a Saturday morning, I will feel it. I will definitely feel it. So, yeah, just that whole kind of living for the weekend, I can't do that. I love the fact, I sometimes hate it, but I know that my beautiful girlfriend hates it sometimes, but sometimes I'm really excited for Monday.
Yeah.
Like, I go to bed on a Sunday evening, like I can't wait to get into things. And that's another point that we should make as well is, and I don't know how you find it, but when I first started off in business, and this is a lesson, please do not make the same mistake that I did. I was so driven that I would just burn myself out to the point that I just needed to like sleep and take some time off, and then I'd burn myself out again. And what I was doing is I just was not actually framing my work in any way that was actually that productive for the amount of time I was putting in. So, for example, I think really we can work effectively for about 6 to 8 hours, especially if you're at a computer. If you're doing physical work, a bit different. But I think for entrepreneurs that are online, 6 to 8 hours focused work with an hour break in the middle, you can do a lot of stuff in that time. But anybody that goes on about, I spent 15 hours on my computer yesterday, I'm like, good. I hope you spent at least some time doing some productive stuff, because for me, and I don't know, I'd like to hear your opinion on this, but for me personally, I can do 6 hours, go to the gym, come back and do a couple more hours. But if I'm doing anything after that, it's just admin-y stuff. And it's not really something I can sink my mind into. That's why we're doing the podcast today at like 11, because 11 for me is like complete optimal time. But like 5 o'clock later, my head will be in a different space. But how do you find that kind of stuff?
I completely agree, but I also think you can probably strip it back further. If you did, I think that like, and I've read a lot about this recently. Like if you can do like 4 hours across a day of actual solid work, no interruptions, like monk mode work, you can get pretty much everything you need to get done. It's all the procrastinating in the middle which adds up. And that's where, like, for me, every day, if everything was, let's say, as efficient as possible, I reckon my day, bar podcast days, could be 4 to 5 hours a day, pretty much. But obviously, like, and that's talking about on the actual side of probably scaling the business, growing it. It's more so the admin-y stuff which will add on to the end of the day and maybe be an hour or two. But the actual main bulk, I think, if you hit it hard and you get yourself into that like deep state of work and you become efficient, 4 hours could be fine.
Yeah, and I think it depends exactly what realm you're working in. For me, I like to time block stuff because I have a lot of different stuff going on. So this is one of the things that actually really helps with my sleep. I was always a massive struggler when it came to getting to sleep. I'd still be there at 2 a.m. I would have gone to bed at like 11. And I would have just laid there with a 9 a.m. meeting, the next day, and it would stress me out. But the night before, I just at 10, half 10, I just write my half an hour time blocks. I go through my calendar, I put all of that in, and then I just work other stuff that needs to get done. 2 hours for the gym and food within the day. And that's how I get everything done. But you're completely right. Like 4 hours, maybe 6 hours.
Yeah,
like
4 to
solid
6 you
work.
could definitely do. It depends. Obviously, it's going to differ day to day of what you got to do. But I think what the point of that is that there's a difference between actually being in sort of like a deep state of work and focus as opposed to lacklustering your way through it and just being inefficient in the process and maybe just using time fillers or being distracted and absorbing sort of anything that would distract you.
Yeah, and I think when it comes to SMMA or whatever you're doing, freelance ecom, you also need to just take time off.
Yeah.
Like weekends, I don't generally work anymore. If a client or somebody I work with has an emergency, yes, I'm on call. You have my personal line. If there's an emergency, your ad account goes down, you're spending 5-10K a day, you need me there, well, that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But generally, I would before just work as much as I could all the time. And it starts to affect other areas of your life real bad. And I think in the first couple of years, that's good to do. But eventually...
And that's exactly what happened with me with when I said about that year period of working my job, studying for my accountancy and building aftermarket. In that year, I fell off at the gym for the first time, like struggled to fit the gym in. I like relationships with friends broke down, was single at the time, so had no interest in girls, like was just work. And I think this is probably actually a sign of burnout. Now, after so some of my accounting exams that I had, these were like entry level accounting and should have been super easy. Now I did accounting in my degree and got first, so I was like the accounting. So and basically I failed 2 of my accounting exams, failed one of them twice, and they were like, if you fail one more, you've lost your job. But the issue that I think I could be looking at now is actually probably burnout, and the fact that I was doing so much at once and that I'd lost my interest in, probably because I'd lost my interest in the corporate world and started to see how I could pursue a career doing what I love, and it just became on the back burner. But it's an interesting thought that I couldn't even complete at that point something that someone with no accounting experience should have been able to do, and I'd got a first from a degree in it. And that's like probably shows that how much, like how bad your mind can be impacted if you're not fully focused on a task.
Yeah, and as well, there's a brilliant diagram. I might be able to send it to you, put it up on this, but it's essentially a circle with like a load of arrows going out of it, and it says focus in the middle. But obviously, this is lots of different little arrows which are focused in different areas. And then on the other side, there's the same circle with just one arrow, but the arrow is like this long, and it says focus. And that's obviously because someone's focusing on one thing, you're just going way further. So what you're probably doing is doing an average job at like everything. Yep. So you're just completely like all over the place.
Yeah, literally.
And
So and then you see the impacts of it. One question that I've got. So I was listening to. Are you aware of Sneeko?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was watching a Sneeko reaction vid, and he was talking about, because he like sells a course and stuff, and it was I think it might have been on a podcast actually, or a reaction vid. We're basically talking about how quickly people are, like, because this is where it relates to you in terms of when you were getting that 800 quid in, you were putting it into a course, or you were putting it into learning. Now, why, and I'm interested to get your perspective on it, why do you think people are so quick to shoot down people that are providing a course, providing some sort of alternative education that's outside of our traditional education system that may cost $1,000, but they'll go to university and pay $9,000 when there's an option that was $1,000? Like, why do people? Because then people come out of uni. A lot of people come out of university and hate what they go into. They might not actually be able to get the job they want. They might not be able to get the money that they were promised. I remember when I first started, like, I was thinking I'd come out as a grad on like 40k. That didn't happen. I was on like 18, and I was in a glamorous job. But like, what? But then I didn't go back and attack the establishment and say I want to, like, because the university is a business.
Yeah.
So I didn't go and say like, I want to know about this, like I want to complain, whatever. But people, if someone like me or someone like you was trying to teach people, it gets shot down like there's no tomorrow. Why do you think there's the dynamic between the education system, like people willingly handing over 9,000, but people not willing to pay a lot less to something that could be a lot more fruitful?
I don't know if I should say my real opinion because I think it might offend a lot of people. It's obviously new.
Yeah.
So people are more likely to trust an establishment. But real quick story, when I left university, they put me in a situation where they said, you need to pay, because I've been there 6 months. They said, because you've been here not a year and you haven't got your first qualification, there was a clause in the university contract that said I had to pay what I'd got to at that point, which I don't know how much it was, probably about £6,000-7,000.
Yeah.
In tuition fees and loans. They said you need to pay that back now, or you finish the year. So I had to finish the year, which got me in more debt.
Yeah.
Which eventually, you know, they say to you, oh, you're not actually going to pay off, like it's going to be like a phone contract. I just paid my most recent tax bill. I can tell you it is not a phone contract.
Yeah.
Like, it is a lot. That the student finance payments that I've made, I'm like, wow, okay, that's a chunk. But when it comes to, like, when it came to me leaving university, it was a sales pitch. I was sat on a chair and they were like selling me into staying for the rest. I was going to help this, it's going to do this. So when you look a sales letter or a, you know, like a VSL or a landing page, it's no different to university.
Yeah.
It's no different
People
to university.
keep forgetting that it's a business.
Yeah, it is. And the college that I went to, the university side was privately owned. It was a business. It actually went bust, but I can see why that happened.
Yeah.
But when it comes to why are people against, I guess, online courses and all this space, I think it's because sometimes people think things are too good to be true, and you should be skeptical.
Yep.
You definitely should be skeptical, or else you're just gonna end up giving Bitcoin to every scam email that comes through your inbox.
And that was something that I did learn from my job before I started this project. They called it, like, as when you learn into being an accountant, they call it professional skepticism, and it is basically just take everything with a pinch of salt, and you've got to run through it and prove it to yourself and understand that, like you can't believe everything at face value.
Yeah,
there's a lot of factors that will go into it to allow you to make a decision, and yes, people should be skeptical.
Yeah, I completely agree. I'm just trying to think how to completely phrase this without standing on too many people's feet. But I think the reason that people don't buy online courses is not because they're necessarily skeptical, which there is a percentage that they should be, but I think it actually comes from self-belief.
Yeah.
Like for me, when I was buying Facebook ads courses, when I was buying Amazon courses, like I didn't care about what the guarantees were. I didn't care about the money tomorrow, in a month from now, 6 months from now. I would do anything to make it work. If there was an inch of knowledge in there that I could pay for that I couldn't get anywhere else, I would pay for it because I was going to make it work. And I knew I was always going to make it work. Yeah. I doubted myself sometimes, but I think I always knew that eventually I'd get where I am today. And I don't think people think about that. They think, oh, people are skeptical, they are used to university. I think it comes from self-belief. I do think in my position, I'm very fortunate. Both my parents were very encouraging when it came to pushing me and saying that I could do certain things. I remember, in fact, it was my dad. We actually went and watched a Liverpool game together. And I remember this instinctively when I was doing Amazon FBA and I was ordering my second batch of Beyblades that didn't work out. My dad said to me, because I said, oh, I've made some money, but now I've made this money, maybe I should just not reinvest it. I can do something else with that money. And my dad just, he said to me, what if you fall, but son, what if you fly? It's a quote from somewhere. And he's always pushed me to take risks, especially whilst I was younger. And, the payoff of that has been absolutely massive. But I don't think enough people grow up being told you can take risks, be confident. If you want to do something, you can do it. And I think the worst thing you can tell a child or somebody that's young is that maybe they have something that's going to hold them back.
Yeah.
For example, generally I'm like quite hyper. And I have thought sometimes, I've taken a couple online tests for ADHD.
Yeah.
If I have ADHD, I don't actually want to know.
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I really do not care. So to diagnose somebody, and I think the way that the world's set up is so easy to crush a young soul. And I think if you have a good parent around you that says, hey, look, son, you can do this. And I tell you what, if it doesn't work out, whatever. At least you tried. That was for me another thing. If I didn't try, I'd never know.
Yeah.
So I couldn't live with that. So I think when you say, where does skepticism come from? Why do people not get into online courses? I would actually say the opposite. Most people, I do think it comes from a lack of self-belief.
Yeah. What about the people that you'll see that bash them without doing them? I think that's still down to self-belief.
Yeah, and I don't think that's too fair for me to comment on, because I think that's a sadder situation than it may seem.
What people as in what?
Because whenever you see somebody online that's like trolling somebody or making fun, 9 times out of 10 they're going through something.
Yeah.
So, for example, there might be the person that, let's say somebody gets into aftermarket arbitrage. Okay, they make £500 in their first month. Good going.
Yep.
They'll have a friend that's saying, well, you can't do that forever. That's not a job. You can't do that. Oh, it's going to take you time to do this. And what if someone refunds? Well, yeah, they did refunds. We have one person refund. We'll see what I mean. But that person is actually going home, checking their bank account and realizing that they're not going to move out for another 4 years.
Yeah.
That's why they're pushing that. So I don't think it's too fair for me to pick and choose and say why things are a certain way. But I would definitely say that some of that stuff you do notice. It's the same with cars. Someone has a nice car, there's always some stupid idiot that will say something and you just think, like, I know what you're going through, but I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it because that would make me a douchebag.
Yeah.
But I know what you're going through, so whatever. And I think in these times now, you pretty much have to have a side hustle or a very well-paying job or business to really be enjoying things.
Yes.
Because I can't walk around, and this is, I'm by no stretch wealthy. I do pretty well for my age, but when I go around and look at how much things cost when I was younger, I'd always be like, well, should I get this or should I get this? And this one's cheaper. Mm-hmm. I don't really have the time. Like, I don't look at the price of things anymore, unless maybe you're in a super, super expensive shop. But I think there are people out there that in this day and age are really struggling. Yeah. Especially the way the government's going, especially the way inflation's going. There are people more than ever that are going to be skeptical. And maybe that doesn't come from a place of actually wanting to be hateful, but maybe it comes from they're not doing too well right now, so just let them
be.
Yeah, let them be. Definitely. Do you agree?
Yeah, I agree. That's a really fair point, and I don't think I've ever really considered it from that angle. I've obviously considered it that I always sort of had I think it's sort of known that like the people who are trolls, like, yes, like they've probably got something going on, but I think when you take it to a bit of a deeper level like that, it's more insightful. Yeah,
and you've always got to be, I guess, aware of other people's situations, and I think the entrepreneurial world is so far out of the norm.
Yep.
That you have to start thinking like other people sometimes, because you can say things that might come off like you're a bit of a douchebag. You're not. It's just a genuine comment.
Yeah.
Let's give an example. Your car.
Yep.
You could say, oh, I've scratched the rims on the Merc. Some guy who's really struck. Oh, okay, you've scratched the rims on your Mercedes. Oh, it must be such an awful problem. You're just like, yo. Shut up. Like that's part of my, like, that's my life.
Yeah.
And you forget because that is your life and that's been your life for a long time.
Yeah.
that some people could only dream of scratching the rims on their Mercedes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think that's one thing that I've definitely learned getting older. And I come from a very small town in Cornwall. So I haven't had small town mentality at all, but I've always been aware that you can't just say things or act in a certain way. I don't even think it's acting in a certain way. I would say it's more saying things that might be the norm when me and you are having a conversation, or other people in the entrepreneur space, or, I'm working on this, I'm really passionate about this. Passion scares people.
Yeah.
It's the same with doing anything that is, I guess, out of the norm. But as you were saying there, when it comes to actually investing in something that is outside of the norm, but also being highly passionate about something is also out of the norm these days. So for me, we'll come back to that conversation I had about that friend of mine that was asking me about why I don't play video games. Well, I'm lucky enough that my job and my business is my passion. Exactly. It's my video game. But if you come along and say, hey, I really care about Facebook ads, I really care about e-commerce, the process of scaling something, to 500,000 plus a month is the most exciting thing in the world. People just think you're insane. People think you're genuinely insane. So you can't say that around everyone.
Yeah.
And it's super interesting. But I did want to get into the kind of SMMA stuff in this.
We've got some questions now that I wanted to sort of just make sure we were okay to bring up, because these are the questions that will probably be a super interesting part of this story, and I think a lot of people will be not necessarily surprised but almost shocked that this is like the scale of what you actually do, because we've never really touched on the numbers or the actual. We've talked about the impact that you've had with people, but we've never really quantified that or sort of given examples.
Yeah.
And you've got some very, very impressive clients.
Thank you.
So let's get stuck into them, and let's give us your biggest client.
Okay, so biggest win was in the middle of COVID. So slap bang in the middle of COVID, which was a really weird period for everybody within business, especially in the UK. I mean, we're paying for it now, even though the government's, paid out all those grants. I think we're definitely paying for it now. But when I was in the middle of COVID, working with a few clients, but every day was like a struggle in some sort of way. Supplier issues. I also had my own brand that I was doing. I scaled a canvas business, which was like a personalized canvas business, all the way up to 37K within like 1 month, just straight off the bat. COVID hit, wiped the whole thing, ended up losing money because of refunds. So it was just a super stressful time. And I was running a competition on Instagram, and this was just for some consulting, to essentially come onto a program with me where I just teach you how to scale your own store for existing business owners, not anyone that wants to get started in drop shipping or none of that. It was like, if you're a business owner that has a business, I want to run a competition and essentially just help you out. So this person came to me just through DMs, and they were selling CMOS, which is a product that I've never ever heard of before this. So I was like, okay, I have no clue what this guy's doing, but it looks like it has some sort of potential. So anyway, he messaged me, and the first thing he said is, and I really like the energy that he came with, was like, I don't want to be part of your program. Like, I want to work with you. You clearly know what you're doing. I've watched some of your trainings, and I just want to work with you. So I said, okay, well, let's just jump on a call. Let's just see where we're at. And this will lead us into what we're speaking about. And this will lead us into what we are going to speak about later, which comes into the SMMA space. So he was working with a agency that was running some ads for him, but he was doing around 30,000 a month just in sales. So not looking too good on the agency side. He wasn't necessarily happy. But because I've been doing this so long, I took a look into his ad account. We got on a call, I met the guy, and I looked at the data and I thought, this is insane. I could see the data and I could see that this was a brand that could be doing ridiculous numbers. I actually told him my estimates for his business, and I think he just thought I was crazy. I spoke to him about this recently. We were in Croatia last year, and he was like, I thought you were literally like crazy. I don't know if I really believed you. I think he wanted to believe me, but why should he when I say such outrageous stuff? So I said, hey, look, I'm so convinced that we can do massive things because of the data here. So let me just work on these, give me a week. But do you know what? You seem like a really nice guy. You have something really cool going on here. I don't want to charge you up front. I want to actually prove to you, because I could tell that he wasn't like fully into what I was saying. I was like, I actually want to prove to this guy. So anyway, I set up his ads for him. And because it was around that weird period of COVID where nobody was really interacting and everybody was having late nights and sleeping in, the next day I had stayed up super late that night for whatever reason. The next day I woke up late and my phone had gone off and I had missed calls from him. And I was like, I don't know what the issue must be. So I called him back, and he literally thought that I'd pretty much put like a bomb into his business. Like, he couldn't believe the sales that were coming in, and now he believed me.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I've proved you right now. Like, I've proved that what I said was true. And we scaled that business from 30,000 to 372,000 within 30 days. We then went on to do bigger numbers and bigger numbers to the point where we got past 500,000 a month.
What the fuck? That's insane.
And then it's got to the point now where I don't really want to talk about the numbers they're doing now, but incredible business. They actually invited me to come further into the business. Yeah. So I direct all of the paid ads within that business, which is why they're in my IG. The people that I work with within that company are brilliant people as well. They have a team of experts on the paid side, on the logistics side, on the customer service side. As a whole round e-commerce project, it's been absolutely insane. And I'm so proud that I was a massive part of it. But it's insane. Even if, as people are watching this right now, they're probably like, did that really happen? Like, within 30 days, you can take a business from that to that. And I always come back to this point of, you should really spend 99.9% of your time just sharpening your axe, and then take a massive, real good hit. Because in the SMMA space, there's so many people, and we can get into this, that don't have that dialed down, and that causes a load of problems. Anyway, he obviously then fired the agency that he was working with. We started working together and we really scaled things up, but not just from a marketing perspective, but from an all-round e-commerce perspective. I've just learned so much from working with them, and made such good connections and great friends through doing that. It's really been one of those things that I proved to my 21-year-old self that I could really change my life and change other people's lives doing this stuff. So that's my biggest win, and the thing that I'm most proud of, because it's just the most impact. And I've always said this, if you can go ahead and impact so many people, the money will just come naturally anyway. So stop worrying about the money. And if you want, we can get into the SMMA stuff of why that's important now more than ever. But when it comes to actually delivering for clients, just think of the impact. Because of what myself and a team of experts are doing within that business, and the CEO of the business, the founder, the work that he's putting in, there are children within families that are being fed more, that are having better presence because of all of the work that's going on. So if you can acquire a skill and you want to move into the SMMA space, or you want to go into the e-com space, the affiliate marketing, arbitrage space, or maybe even just sales for high ticket sales, you have to be very, very, very good at what you are doing. And obviously I work with multiple people that are doing different numbers. So some clients in 40, 50K a month, but some of them doing way bigger numbers. But that initial impact of scaling up a business, all it is 99.9% of the time I've just been sharpening my axe, studying, taking every course I could, watching every YouTube video I could, burning my own money when I really wasn't making anything back when I was, 21, 22, 23. All of that now seems so much more worth it. And also you prove to yourself that you were right in doing what you thought you should do at that age, which is always nice as well. And it's always nice to prove people right as well, because obviously for the business owner as well, it's been massive. He went on to Shark Tank last year, got partnered with Mark Cuban and Kevin Hart, made a deal there. So it's all about changing multiple people's lives and just having that impact. And the money comes anyway. And I always say this, the money will come when you provide impact and you provide value. It might not come straight away, but eventually it will. And I think in the SMMA space, especially with all of the gurus that make it seem so super, super easy, the problem is that they are just teaching people how to sell. So I could say to you, for example, let's scale this up to 100K, but it's going to cost you $5,000, by the way, or plus 100K relative on what numbers you're doing, but it's going to cost you 5K. I could sit here and convince you one-on-one that that's going to happen. You pay me that 5K, I don't care now. I've got my 5K. You can do whatever. I'll do some service delivery for you.
I fell for it before, so I know exactly what you're about.
So it's a hard one, because obviously I understand that, social media agencies, especially when there's a team, there's overheads. I understand why they have to charge like a big retainer or whatever. But honestly, if I could give any advice to anyone that's got a brand that wants to grow, if the person you're working with does not have massive results and they do not work with like a percentage, so, percentage of return, or they don't want to partner with you, or they don't want to do like a retainer them percentage, which would obviously be a smaller retainer just to cover their time of working with you, I would just run. I would completely run. These people that go ahead and charge 10K a month, you can't do that forever. And like we've been saying, if you can't do it forever, just don't bother doing it.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get super misconstrued, is the agency owners want to make 10K a month. That's always the one that everyone goes for, is like 10K a month. Everybody talks about that. But they don't care about making their clients 100K a month. Because if you make your clients that much, you're going to be making that much anyway, or relative around that. So in the SMMA space, it is kind of corrupted at the moment. And if you want, I'll go into some real nitty gritty of some experiences that I've had.
I'd love to hear it, mate. I think everyone listening, free value, help people out, and it'll mean that people don't fall into certain traps.
Yeah, and I think
let loose.
I think I'm gonna probably wire a few people in the wrong way, but to be honest, I don't care. So when it comes to the SMMA space, most of them are scam artists.
Yep.
100%. When I speak with people, I talk about results. I'll pull out my laptop or my phone and show them the results on the screen, live.
That was one of the things you did with us when you first DM'd us and said like about podcast opportunity, and then we said, "Have you got any proof?" Sent straight away.
Yeah, because I've just been doing this.
Because that's the thing. Anyone can say, like, we get people that will come to us and say, "Oh, like I've done this," but then there's no proof, and you were straight up front. Here's what I've done.
Yeah,
take it or leave it. And
most people just don't have that, and it's scary.
Yeah,
it's really scary. When I was in Marbella last year, this is gonna rile some people, 100%. When I was in Marbella last year, I was speaking to some agency owners, consultants out there, and they were all in the space of bringing on mass clients.
Yep.
So they're bringing on mass clients, then delivering results for them, So they were very good at getting people on calls, which is important within a business, obviously. But they were very good at getting these people on calls, promising them the world, and then just delivering nothing, essentially. But what they were doing is they were locking them in 3-month contracts. So each, let's say 4K a month client is now worth 12k. So actually, from a financial standpoint, you can run a business by just delivering the results and just having a few clients that are obligated to pay 12k. But the problem is that they were constantly having to take sales calls. And I noticed this, and we were having drinks on the second night there, and they were talking about results, and clearly there were some people there that were uncomfortable talking about these results. Really uncomfortable. And I was kind of, catching the way that people were looking, and
you're just observing the room.
Yeah, so somebody said, it's a guy called, I think it was Chris. He said, okay, so what's like the biggest result that someone's got for their client? Anyway, I'm eager to obviously pull out results, and I went ahead and just showed some results on my phone. They thought I was like insane. They couldn't believe what I was doing with the people I work with, the clients, and just the results. They thought it was absolutely insane. And I thought it was insane that they thought it was insane. So I was going through some of their results with them, and it was disgusting. It was disgusting that these people were charging people 4 or 5k a month to deliver like nothing. But it's fine because they were in Marbella.
Yeah.
In a nice villa, drinking. So why should they care? But for me, if a client's slipping, I can't sleep. Yeah. And that's kind of one of the problems with being super passionate about this. But in the SMMA space, most of them are cowboys.
Yeah.
100%. If they can't show you live on their phone massive results, if they don't do a percentage, or if they don't do like a retainer plus percentage, they are probably full of rubbish. And if they don't have mass testimonials as well, they are really... It's so easy to get somebody on a sales call, promise them all the world, and once they've paid 4k, wow, I've just made 4k. I was working in Asda and now I've made 4k.
Yeah.
I could do this again. I could do it again. I could do it again. But as I said, like, I did it the opposite way around, where I wasn't interested when I was young in getting people to work with. I was just interested in being a massive nerd at marketing, Facebook ads, TikTok ads, anything that came into that realm, and understanding how hooks work in videos and how you can essentially take something from very small to massive within like 30 days. The idea of that to me was essentially printing money.
Yep.
So I became completely obsessed with it, to the point that I became so good that I can look at different things at different scales of businesses with ads and see what needs to be done. Then I went into the space of, okay, let's start working with some people. Let's bring, some people in. Let's start delivering results. Because I was going to that event and doing some work out there that I thought I would be the worst one there.
Yeah, you thought you'd be dwarfed.
Yeah, I wanted to be the worst one there. Like, I wanted to learn from other people, but it took me like 2 days to realize that these guys were full of rubbish, like completely full of rubbish.
There's a huge, I think in that sort of behavior, there's a huge morality issue and question around that, because it is like you said, it's essentially being a cowboy. You're just taking people's hard-earned money. They're expected something. And the only thing that's been delivered is their flight ticket to Marbella.
Yeah, exactly. And it all comes back. We'll say this a million times, get it on a t-shirt, but it all comes back to, if you can't do it forever, don't do it. For example, if somebody wants to work with me now, I have limited time available. So I want to really work with them. So, I have to really want to work with them.
Yeah. It's got to be something that you're, I guess, sort of interested in, see the potential in, and know that your time is precious and extremely valuable. So you've got to have a solid, you've got to be 100% certain.
Yeah, and if they aren't ready to aggressively scale, or they're not the type of person that I don't want to work with, I'm fortunate enough to be in the position to say, look, I don't need the money, so just go ahead and do your own thing, or maybe I'll refer them to somewhere else. But when it comes to actually how you should work with brands, you should essentially be able to know that you can scale a brand before paying them, in my opinion. But most of these people that are in these businesses, they don't even have enough knowledge to know if they can do it.
Yeah.
They can't look at those results that I did way back when with that brand that eventually went on to Shark Tank that I still work with. They couldn't actually see that data. Like, they can't read that and be like, okay, that's a stupid massive brand. They have no clue. So for me, it was so scary seeing all of these people, and the amount of people that I've spoke to in the last few years are like, I hate agencies. And I'm like, I fully understand why you hate agencies, because they're mostly full of rubbish. But
It's happened, like I said, it's happened to me.
yeah.
We got shunned by an agency, sold the dream, essentially just realised that they were good at sales, not good at actually delivering upon anything whatsoever. And we ended up in a huge mess, and lost a ton of money. And most importantly, the whole thing set us back way over 6 months. And that's the thing, that when a business like ours, it's a startup, 6 months is huge. Like, if you want to be scaling at the early stage of a company, like, that is, the time is precious, and for it to be wasted by someone that's just not only consuming your money but also just spinning the wheels and wasting your time, like, there's nothing more frustrating.
Yeah, and I think as well, there definitely is nothing more frustrating, because once you get some sort of cash and you have like some sort of, I guess, comfort blanket to be able to choose and do what you want, if you waste someone's time, that's more annoying than money.
Exactly.
That's way more annoying than money. Don't hold me back with time. So yeah, I don't know what the process was with obviously you getting involved with them, but they were probably pretty good at chatting rubbish.
Yeah.
I don't know if they had any massive results or claimed to have any massive results, but yeah, it is scary. And I was really disappointed when I went out there. It made me very anxious, and I was understanding of why these brands say.
Were these guys that you met out in Marbella, were they all, was it like were they all just agency owners, or were they people selling courses, blend? What was it?
90% agency owners.
Right.
Yeah, and they were all there kind of networking. But it was, I mean, it
What-
was 100% count.
Out of interest, what's the value in them all being there and networking? Because just like from my perspective on it, if you're all like cowboys, right, you wouldn't care talking about your business and like what you were all doing, how much money you were all making. But if you were like legit and like you wouldn't want to give away your secret sauce, would you, about how you were making all this money? So what's to gain from that networking setup?
A lot of drinking.
Is it just social, purely social?
I think it was,
Because if it's social, I get it. But I mean, why would, let's say, if, for example, like your agency, right? Well, it's not an agency, is it? But you thriving, you're not going to tell everyone that sat around there you're the blueprint, are you?
no, the conversations were based around getting more clients.
Got it.
So, which was worrying to me. So it was, how can I do this through email? How can I do this through Instagram? Anyone doing it through ads? Okay, cool. None of them were talking about service delivery.
So how did what did you expect it to be? Like, what was your anticipation of the event?
A bunch of geeks that were.
So, because I guess this is where it's sort of, I forgot, you sort of thought that you would be learning from people, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to go and speak to some other killers.
Yeah.
Like, I was excited because I've always felt like I'm very lonely in this space. So I was excited to go and speak with other people that I knew would be like me, super passionate about e-com, complete nerds, work with multiple brands. Like, that's cool. When I went there, I just realized that they were just a bunch of idiots. Like, and that they were all talking about acquisition. I don't say all of them. There were a few people there that were like actually delivering some tangible results. They're good people as well. But when it came to the majority, they were just morons that were just essentially trying to get more people on sales calls to make more money today.
They were focusing on cash collected as opposed to service delivery.
Yeah. And the thing is as well, when it comes to working with multiple brands, you get to a point where you realize actually if you have a stake in these businesses or you take a percentage, sometimes that's worth more than the monthly fee anyway.
For sure.
And just having the peace of mind that you're not ripping someone off is nice. Like, I don't get how these guys, maybe through lack of empathy and just being savage, I know sometimes that can be a good thing in business, but these guys were just too ruthless with it, in my opinion. They were just charging a load of money, showing them some stupid screenshots, and then just essentially running off with the money and not delivering the service. I can't think of the amount of money that they have collected as a group, and I want to see the return for the customers. I would love to see that. So actually it'll probably make me cry, but I think when it comes to anything that's service based, whether it be e-commerce or Google Ads, let's take that for an example. You need to be really good at Google Ads to charge a service for Google Ads. So anybody that is watching this that wants to go ahead and get involved in the SMMA space, you got to just get really good at one thing. Like one thing. Or if you're a videographer and you want to go ahead and make content for people, take your camera, go down the street and start making content for free for people if you don't have any clients, and just get incredible to the point that someone says, you know, nobody can touch Jack on what he does. He's the best within that space. You don't want to go anywhere else. If you're going anywhere else, it's kind of subpar.
Yep.
You want to get in that position so that you can do it forever. Because what concerns me in this day and age more than ever is people doing things for like 2 or 3 years and just dumping it on his head because they found something else to do. And there's a lot of option paralysis in the digital space. Amazon FBA, you can do SMMA, you can do consulting, drop shipping. I mean, it's tough, especially if you're like 18 to 20. You're thinking like, where do
I've watched so many people bounce between them all.
Yeah.
And we spoke about this on the last pod, where the people that bounce between them all, they make a little bit of money in each one. But if they would have stuck in the first one and just got the head down and just went 100 mile an hour in that, they would be miles ahead of where they are now. Yeah. Miles.
Yeah, and I think having that regret is actually more painful than a lot of things. But is there anything else that you?
I think that's a good point, good place to round it off on. I think the one question I'm going to ask before we go is we always sort of leave the podcast with some sort of advice from the guest, and in the sense of what someone is looking to get started, or someone is in their 9 to 5 now, but they're too scared to take the leap. There's obviously a lot of people don't have that self-belief. What would be your words to them people? Yeah,
that's a good question. I think it's hard because it's obviously going to be different for different people. Everybody has different backgrounds, whatever. But my biggest fear that drives me is regret. So if I hadn't done what I'm doing now, I would be stuck in an office, or I'd be selling cars, which for some people is fine, but for me it's not. And I realized that at a young age. And that fear of regret and just understanding that you may be in that position if you don't do something now.
Yeah.
And realize that 21 to 26, 27 is quick.
Yep.
It's super quick. And it's scary. And when you're 21, you think you have all the time in the world. You don't.
Yep.
And you definitely don't have the time at 30, 35.
No, because then you've got real responsibilities. Yeah. You probably have kids. You might have a wife. You've probably got a mortgage.
Yeah. So I would just say, to understand, if you're young, that you have time, but to use that time wisely. Get very good at something to the point that you can essentially walk over anybody else within the space. And then once you've trained within that space for a long time, taught yourself whatever you do, invest in courses, go to university, then I would just start taking risks, micro risks whilst you're young. Probably actually whilst you're young, you can take bigger risks than you can when you're older. But just that fear of regret and never doing anything, it's the only thing I really thank myself for constantly, is that I took the leap to do what I'm doing, because I had nothing to lose. Especially if you're in a bad job and you're thinking, oh, okay, well, I'll never get this opportunity again. like if you're working in a job that sucks and it's like retail, for example, or like we were in like a warehouse, people, when you're in that space, I used to think, oh, well, I might not be able to get this type of job again. As you get older, you realize you could have that job 100 times if you wanted it. So actually, whilst you're young, the idea of not leaving your job is actually more risky than staying at the job anyway.
Yeah.
So by staying at the job, you're screwing yourself.
Yeah.
And by not risking, you're actually screwing yourself in the future anyway. Yeah. Because let's say if it doesn't work out, it's fine because you have time. And that's something I realized when I was young. It's okay for me to quit a job, go pursue something for 6 months. If it doesn't work out, I can just get a job because guess what? I'm 22. Yeah. Like, if you're at that age and you have that window, just go and do a load of stuff. The regret of not actually doing something is going to be way more scary. Maybe not right now, but in a few years, than it would be if you stayed in that job and had that security. Or maybe you don't even have a job. Sometimes when people are skeptical of these kind of things, they're already in the worst positions. Yeah. So it's like the only way's up. But I guess the fear of regret should be something that is driving you every single day.
And I think tying into that, I think it was Jordan Peterson said it was something along the lines of like one of the biggest risks that you can actually take is not ever taking a risk and just staying in that comfortable position. Because then you're going to get to, let's say you started your 9 to 5, you were a graduate, you started on 20k, you've got up to 60k by 30, 40, and then you're at 80k by 50 or 100k by 50. But that increase in salary over that time is so small compared to what it could be if you had took risks.
Yeah. 100%.
And I think in our space, where we're sort of in control and like where we can increase our incomes much faster than a 9 to 5 salary will ever give you, and that is just from taking a risk whilst we're young.
Yeah, and I think you just hit it bang on there with what you just said. But a lot of people think it's going to be a lot of work, and it will. But once you start getting those small wins, say for example you're doing a side hustle, your first sale on Shopify or like Amazon and eBay is awesome. Yeah. It's like the biggest hit of dopamine. You'll do like 10k months and it won't be the same dopamine like that you got on that first sale. So it's like going to the gym. Like, you have those kind of newbie gains when you start off in the gym, and then it becomes more tough because it's hard to keep gaining muscle at that rate. It's the same in business. Those little wins are such high hits of dopamine that it's very easy like that to just literally get addicted to business and growth. So it's not actually that painful. When people say, oh, well, it'd be a lot of work to set up a business. It's like, well, you don't just out of nowhere set up a business. You start with a few small little goals and you just hit them. And then guess what? The dopamine you get from them is better than any video game. It's better than anything that you can tangibly do without, I guess essentially paying a lot of money for. But just having those little wins will get you addicted to actually doing things within your real life that are gonna, pay your real life, I guess. But yeah, I think that's a good place to wrap it up. Banging.
Honestly, guys, that was an awesome podcast. I hope all of you've got some value out of that. Like, if you've not, you must have had like fucking headphones on or something. Like,
must be stoned.
Yeah. But yeah, I hope you've all sort of took something out of that and can apply it somewhere. But thank you for coming on, Josh, mate. It was a great podcast. And
appreciate it.
Honestly, mate, I'm fucking well impressed. Honestly, you should be proud of yourself, bro. Congrats for getting to where you are.
And you too.
And yeah, you're a credit. So thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to subscribe. I'm going to have more podcasts coming up. Got more lined up over the next few weeks, so make sure you don't miss them. And we've got one where we're going to be touching on OnlyFans management, so you're probably not going to want to miss that one. Cheers, guys.